Okay, so we'll just need to introduce these people to you. I think you've met Nico earlier. So 30 seconds, 40 seconds of who you are, just to remind the audience of who you are.
Cool, yeah, so I'm Nico Vidratnam, very difficult surname. I've worked in media for the last 10 years. I used to run BBC News. I worked a brief stint at Dow Jones Media Group and the Wall Street Journal. And then I founded a startup in the media space, and now I'm currently enrolled as head of product at FT Core, which is the platform department at the Financial Times.
Thank you very much. Henrik, also known as Dr. Henrik, but he doesn't like to talk about it. Henrik, you?
It's the dark side of my past. So Hendrik van der Lind is my name. I work for Central European Media Enterprises, which is a majority shareholder owned by Time Warner. And it's we're running in 6 countries in Central and Eastern Europe, the leading broadcaster media houses, over 30 channels. We're also an online publisher with multiple video platforms and news and entertainment websites. And we also run an SVOD service, a subscription-based video service, one of the first ones in the region here. I'm the COO of the Romanian operation of CME, and I'm also the co-coordinator for the digital initiatives across all our countries.
Thank you. Galia, please.
Hi, I'm Galia. I come from Capital. This is one of the organizers of today's event. But Capital is also a newspaper quality brand in Bulgaria. I started as a journalist there back 20-something years ago. Now I manage the company, the publishing company. We have a couple of very well-respected news brands, and we are also specialized in business and political news. And I have another hat. As a media company, we have part of our revenue has always come from advertisers, and in the recent years we've seen how advertising is transforming and the needs of advertisers and communication goes more to content marketing. So I'm also presenting here Storio. These are the guys with the black ice cream outside, and this is the content marketing studio which we created.
Okay, thank you. Ian, please.
Hi, I'm Ian. I'm the European content director at Quartz, QZ.com. We are an international business news publication, and I am responsible for the branded content output of our team here in Europe.
Elizabeth, just refresh.
It's me again.
The Netflix of
yes.
reading.
Medium, marketing at Medium.
Okay, awesome. So we have a perfectly diverse panel for once. We have 2 women, 2 men, and 2 men not wearing socks. Right? So we're perfectly diverse. We're cool. So instead of the future of socks, which clearly we're not their biggest promoters, we're talking about content. And we're talking about storytelling, we're talking about old channels, new channels. So probably let's start off with the people that haven't been on stage. And Ian, Quartz, I met your founder, Jay, in my club in London about 5 years, maybe longer, 6 years ago. And he told me he was going to set up this thing, Quartz. And I would never have believed that he'd done such an amazing thing. I read your daily newsletter. I think your Quartz Obsessions, which they publish daily, is awesome. How has it kind of evolved in those 6 years? I mean, where's the money come from? Have you been funded? How is it?
It's evolved a lot over the last 6 years. We started out with just a website, and when we did that, we wanted to make it as user-friendly as possible. And I know this is something you just touched on, so we don't use horrible pop-up banner ads or interstitials or things like that. We make it all about the information. We make it all about the user and really put the user first. And as a result, we've grown over the last 6 years, as you mentioned, into newsletters. We have 3 hugely popular newsletter series, and we've found great success with that. We've branched out into our app, which I urge you all to download. It's nothing like you've ever seen from a news brand before. It is effectively a messenger, and it's a conversation with our newsroom about the news. And recently we've branched out into some of the other things you've heard here today, such as augmented reality and long-form video series.
As a writer for the BBC and The Economist, especially The Economist, you told me before that you thought that you would try and set up Quartz, or Jay would set up Quartz, as if you were setting up The Economist now,
Absolutely.
and not in 1843. So what was the difference? Well, apart from, even though The Economist print sales are still going up, by the way.
So the way we structure our newsroom is fundamentally different to the way we structure other companies structure their newsroom. So our reporters don't have the traditional beats. We don't have a tech pod or a finance pod, because the way the new global economy is stories touch on all of these. So we organize our newsroom by obsessions. So let's take cryptocurrency as an example here. Yes, that could be a simple finance story. And in a traditional newsroom, you would have your finance reporter looking at that. You might have your tech reporter looking at that. You might have your business reporter looking at that. But the way we structure ourselves is by these obsessions. And some rise and some fall over time. We're not wedded to them. And that allows us to go really in-depth into these stories and have people that truly are obsessed by them writing about them.
No, I moderated a panel in Berlin 2 weeks ago with crypto. And it was Prince Constantine of the Dutch royal family having an interview with Ghostface Killer of the Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, the world's gone mad. Galia, we were talking earlier about content and your kind of experience in it, and we talked about different channels and different ways. What are you doing at the moment to grab an audience or to keep an audience? What's your obsession, I suppose?
Just let me start with that. When Capital was established, as I said, more than 20 years ago, we wanted to be the Bulgarian Economist. And now we are moving more to the model which Ian was describing for Quartz, meaning we started on paper, now we're digital, of course, but also we had to transform all the relationships, both sides, on one side to our readers, on the other side to our advertisers. So we started on paper, we are now digital with applications, but still for us the main channel, one of the bigger distributional channels is Facebook. This is very, very strong in Bulgaria, getting less though. We have very strong stream of direct users typing the name of our homepage still. And we see newsletters developing as a new, very, very strong channel for quality news, for quality information.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you still think there's a market for that? Or the Netflix of reading, or the journalism of reading? Because
I don't believe, I mean, video is obviously getting more and more important because of the speed networks provide, so people are consuming more and more video. But I don't believe text will disappear at all. Although you said earlier you're not reading any long text on screens.
I can't do it on screen.
Yes, yeah.
I think ebooks are the work of the devil.
But for me, one of the biggest questions is how genres will evolve. Content will be here to stay. But what will the future genre will be? It won't be only video. It will be something augmented with text, I guess. Also some techniques of chatting. I saw there is an application called Yarn, very popular among American teenagers. It was designed based on their habit to chat, and the whole story is told only in short lines. I mean, somewhere in between those will be the future of genre, and I wonder whether the platforms would be across genres or...
That's a very good point. When it comes to the way that people digest and eat content. You, Henrik, you've got some amazing numbers about the Netherlands and linear TV or traditional TV, what percentage of people that watch TV on a mobile in the Netherlands is?
It's 50%. It's
Insane.
50%. It's 50%. And the interesting part of it is, if you follow all the media buzz around, all the buzz about media disruption, you would expect that basically content or the future of content is only taking place, on the traditional platforms like on the Facebook, on the Googles, and so forth, and that everything around is basically, just vanishing and is disappearing. And what we actually see in our everyday life, and also, with the data that we have, is that there is much more diversity actually out there. And that the reality is that, to a large extent, there is coexistence of different types of platforms, of different types of content, of different types of choices for people for entertainment. And live TV is one of it. Yeah? So, of course, I'm as the broadcaster, I'm supposed to make the point about live TV, but live TV actually is a great digital medium if it's done in the right way. And most of the broadcasts, they don't do it in the right way yet. But if you just think about it, yeah, that you have the opportunity, for example, to have 24/7 a lean back entertainment experience which is fully curated, people select for you something that you might rely on, that you have an emotional attachment to it, and you get every minute a fresh new content, it's great, but it does not have to happen on a TV. It has to happen wherever you as a user want to have it.
So lean back's still a phrase. I remember, was it lean back and...
Lean back, lean in.
Step forward. Or
So
whatever.
the good sayings never die. Yeah, content is king.
Absolutely.
Like that, we used to say it in the
Distribution
90s.
is King Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those phrases. Why do you think it's gone crazy in the Netherlands? Is there any reason for it, do you think? Or is that a kind of European trend? I mean, you are a local guy, right? 6 territories in Central
Yes,
Europe, so you've got a local perspective on this. How do you think that kind of, let's use mobile as an example.
Yeah.
Is that going up, or is it going across, or...?
Well, it's going dramatically up, in particular in our countries. I mean, in the countries that we're operating in, which is due to the fact that we're not struggling with the big obstacles that the massive tanks of countries like Germany, for example, have. Right. So broadband speed is the biggest topic in Germany. This problem does not exist in most of the markets in Eastern Europe because the networks were built way later and they're way more up to date.
So Africa,
and the distribution,
piggybacking.
Yeah,
okay.
no, absolutely. And the Netherlands, you told me the example outside, right? You were selling years ago sports ride way ahead of the time and of the people around to people in the Netherlands as one of the first movers.
I used to work, I'm a loser, right? I turned down a job at Amazon because it was too far to go, 1999. Our company failed Angry Birds for a 251k for a 51%. I'm just a loser. But one of these weird things about, we did a deal when we were a mobile video company. We had a deal with 6 countries for the rights to the Premiership football. And these countries were the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Finland, China, and the Faroe Islands. That was the deal that we'd done. The biggest country in the world and the smallest country in the world. You never know what's going to happen. So I'm coming over to you, Nico, right? And we're going to talk about paywalls, right? Because I was talking to a fellow journalist backstage, and we were talking about the Telegraph in the UK is making a big push to get new journalists. And they've taken a lot of market share from the Times, because the Times was one of the early publications to go behind a paywall. It kind of doesn't exist on the internet. But you seem to have a different idea from the FT and Bloomberg, that there is a move now to finally towards a subscription model. I'm not convinced, but can you convince the audience?
Yeah, so the FT, we're quite proud that we spearheaded the move behind a paywall very early on, along with the Times. It's really interesting because when we talk about content, just building on some of the other points, we took this concept of pages from books and moved them to the internet because we didn't know any better at the time. And we still talk, until very recently, about page views. And that page view has driven some very bad behavior in our industry. And it led us to try and monetize it through advertising. And the advertising is effectively breaking the relationship between us as a publisher, the brands that we work with, and the audience that we're both trying to connect with, to the point where you guys, or all of us, hate seeing ads on our content. And actually will pay to not see them. So a lot of people are actually...
So it's a strict deal for deal.
Deal for deal, yeah.
Deal for deal. No ads, subscribe.
So that's what we're seeing in America, actually, with GDPR. A lot of the American publications decided, actually, we'll just take ads and cookies and everything off our sites, but we'll charge you for that ad-free experience.
I'm pleased.
And in the UK, we're seeing a lot of people, actually globally, a lot of people are moving towards subscriptions.
Yeah.
So although we're proud at the FT that we moved to a subscription model early...
Yeah, the FT are awesome. Don't talk about the FT
yeah.
too much. But in general, there is a subscription model reforming.
I think so.
Oh, that's fantastic news. So that's great for all of our quality content. Hi, Elizabeth. How are you going? How's
Great.
Medium fit into all of this?
Very similarly to the Financial Times, actually, which is interesting because something I didn't mention is that we actually have a really strong, I think, value proposition, and Paul was advertising for me a little bit earlier for only $5 a month, and you can pay with PayPal, so you guys can go ahead. You get access to syndicated content from top publishers, which includes, Financial Times, New York Times, Washington Post, etc. You get access to originals, so content that we commission specifically to be on Medium only, and you get access to curated UGC. And then on top of that, exclusive features and the ability to reward authors directly to have that impact, to engage with the content and decide who should be paid because of the quality of the content.
So like the Huffington Post have just tried to do that, right? Is that your competitor, I suppose? Or is that just a bit...
Not necessarily. I think a big difference between what we're doing and a lot of other media companies is that we're not competing in the news space.
Right.
Our company is not made of journalists, and we don't intend to compete in that space at all. We have an editorial team with a lot of editors, and we would rather invest in content that is a lot more evergreen, that maybe in 6 months or a year is just as interesting. So, we select stories that we think are really long-form, in-depth research that will really add value and back to the comparison with Netflix.
Gallo, you kind of like looked as if you agreed then with what Elizabeth was saying. You kind of went, oh, yeah, absolutely. Would that be right? Do you agree with Elizabeth?
On what? I mean, this medium is more as... No, I raised because we have an earlier conversation about investing in news versus investing in...
evergreen content.
In content which is consumed longer, and in fact that's somehow the conflict between. That's the reason why nobody wants to pay for news currently and be the investor of quality news, and that's a big issue for the societies. We've been discussing why, for example, what stops Netflix to invest in news and become a full-blown TV experience on demand, and this is exactly so what we thought.
News seems to be like over, in a way.
It's not over.
Is it because no one believes it? I mean, yesterday, I think he was a Russian journalist, faked his own death in front of his wife. Then he turned into a transgender being called Kim Kardashian,
right.
And then he went to the White House to talk to President Trump about reform. Is this the story that you read? Is that the same one? Because I don't believe anything anymore.
Yeah, but still there is... it's not over until there is need for information of what's going on around.
Yeah, but who do I believe? If I'm a reasonably intelligent guy, you know what I mean? I write for The Economist, I write for Forbes, I write for the BBC. I should be, I know what quality is, I suppose.
I think the problem is that a lot of people don't know what quality is.
Yeah, but that's the point. If they don't know what quality is about, and we're all talking about quality, and this is all great, and maybe we're in our own gardens, Plato's cave, and seeing our own shadows.
What happened in the last years is that Facebook have taken all the users, in fact, and mixed up and debranded content, and people got used into some linear experience of having everything there. And now it's fading because it's already obviously full of everything, and I believe people will go back to brands one way or another because this.
But you are all kind of codependent on Facebook, right?
There is obviously for every publisher there is a strong dependency in the day-to-day fight for the audience to go.
Is it for money or is it for audience? Why is Facebook still embedded in this whole panel?
Money follows the audience. If you have the eyeballs, you have the money in it. The traffic dependency is one of the biggest issues, basically in the way how Facebook emerged for publishers as an outlet, as a marketing medium. So it's a very bipolar, relationship. And I think one of your key points was before relying fully on the third-party platform that you can't control is a big issue. Think about the multi-channel networks on YouTube. Tomorrow they could all be out of business, and these are multi-million-dollar businesses at this point,
Absolutely.
right?
Or
So
Facebook changes its algorithm, Ian, and then suddenly everything's gone bonkers again.
Absolutely, and I think this is an issue that's facing every single one of us up here, and the main way we're all looking at dealing with that is diversification of platforms. Within that, I think the key thing to remember is you've got to create for the user and also create for the platform. So don't just take a long-form video and put it on Facebook or put it on wherever. It needs to be created for the platform to give the best experience.
So a trailer on Facebook for a movie is great.
Yeah, but you're not going to
cinema
sit down and
is-
watch a
yeah,
full,
okay,
full movie
right.
there. And from a news perspective, I think one of the ways and one of the most interesting ways we've seen recently is with the resurgence of the newsletter. It is a very sort of personal thing people are doing by subscribing, inviting you, a brand, into their most...
Are they subscribing to a newsletter, or are they receiving a newsletter?
They are subscribing. It's all opt-in, and they're subscribing to receive it because they want the value exchange from that. I know we had a conversation about this earlier. We do both long and short form newsletters, and they both do particularly well, but at different times of the day. And our strategy is based around putting them out at different times of the day to meet people's different needs. You want something quick and easy in the morning. It's the first thing you look at when you wake up is your email. You just need to know what you want for that day. And then later on the commute home or at lunchtime where you are a bit more relaxed, you've got a bit more time, you want a deeper dive into something, we're able to do that too.
Or Friday morning cup of tea.
Or Friday
just
morning
before
cup of tea.
lunch, you read Medium, right? For a little bit more length, I suppose. So what are we talking? We're talking about subscription models here, then.
Well, I think
This is really fantastic.
I should
news for
clarify
me.
there when I say subscription, it's subscribing to the newsletter, not physically handing over money
Oh
for
no!
it.
So you don't think that's because that would be awesome. Because I'm starting a newsletter, so I'm happy to charge for it. No, seriously. Now that GDPR's over, we've all got a chance, right? Everyone.
I think there's a really interesting thing happening is that we're all trying to find more ways of monetizing our content efficiently, and kind of building on what we were just talking about there. You know, we all only have 24 hours in our day, but there's more and more content being produced than ever before. So we go for newsletters because it's a way that people can get content on the move, on their way to work. But one of the big problems is the trust thing that you talked about earlier. Is how do we identify trust? And that's going to be one of the big problems. The other thing is the personalization. So serving the right content to the right people at the right time. That's one of the biggest problems we're going to have to crack. But the other problem,
that's quite obvious, though, isn't it? You just when New York wakes up, or when San Francisco wakes up, or when London wakes up, and then Beijing wakes up.
but you'll need to program for that and need to understand when different parts of your audience are waking up and then
that's
deliver
not
that content.
difficult, is it?
He
I
says,
suppose it's what they like
Yeah.
to read as well.
but the other
So,
problem is when we all go behind a paywall, nobody's going to have more money in their pockets. So you're going to have to choose which of us you subscribe for. And then if all the quality news is behind a paywall and you've got limited funds, then actually we're starving you potentially of sources of quality content. So that is another big problem that we're going to have to solve.
But
one of the
sorry,
one of the things very true in that is, A, it's not a one-fit-all model, right? And B, it's also, if we want to work with subscription-based models, and in particular, if you're not, international huge brand like FT that has the scale, building that connection to the audience is a pretty difficult thing. And B2C is the most difficult part that you can actually enter into. What we see a lot happening around in, traditional video-based media houses is content aggregation. A thing a couple years back, it was unthinkable of. Today, you see joint ventures popping up, aggregating in one platform, making it all convenient, because that's what it's getting into.
Okay, so what you're seeing then, you're seeing a kind of self-filtering of content. There's so much of it. We've reached peak content, and now people are digging through the dump to find the diamond. Is that?
The key thing, I think, building what you're saying is if I share something to Henrik,
Yeah.
I WhatsApp you a link, the chance of you reading that is high, right?
Absolutely.
So that's one of the key things is the communities, the people we know, can be the filter to help us get through all of that content.
Well, one of the things that really annoys me about brands and audiences is storytelling, right? Fucking storytelling. Nursery rhymes, whatever. Storytelling. Do you think that really is? I mean, Elizabeth, I'm sorry, I'm just going to do it. It's getting late. I'm tired. Need a beer.
I think that's a really good point, but it's really interesting because from what we've seen in different experiments and campaigns is that when you just provide content that is personalized from an algorithm that is really tailored to you, all the things you follow, all your favorite topics, just that package together actually doesn't really perform really well because it looks like it's a robot just like delivering you content. And what works is when we have a human bundling all the content together and explaining to you why you're getting it and putting it in context.
A curator.
Curation, but also putting it in context. Like if you look at really, really good newsletters, like the Quartz one that I think are really great, there is a journalist that really writes it out, and there is a voice. There is a human behind it, and I think that's what people like when they read it. You know, that's what makes them loyal. They know the person, they know the voice. If you just send them just links to click, I think it will easily die out. And I think storytelling is, unfortunately, I mean, not unfortunately, it's thankfully really much
there's
needed.
also, but you're making the point then that people are reading a writer, that person. You know, D.H. Lawrence, the writer, once said, never trust the artist, trust the tale, which I've always thought was a load of bollocks, to be honest, you know, because you have a personal kind of contact, not with a story that's being told, but with the person that's telling the story. And it seems to me that brands try to take it upon themselves that I am a brand, I can tell you stories. I mean, you know, I met someone from Instagram in Dubai a couple of months ago, and was telling me about the incredible effect of Instagram stories, where it's now become a business on its own. You know, how do you compete with that type of storytelling?
Well, from a brand perspective, I think yes, I think the human voice there is a very key thing. If you are a brand trying to get a message out, it's great telling stories, but you've got to do it from something that tugs on people's heartstrings, not in a positive way or a negative way. We always say that brands go out to buy an audience has a value, but people have values, and it's about appealing to
Absolutely.
those. And that's one of the things that I think Instagram Stories allows people to do, is share these great moments. From a brand's point of view, jumping on those, it's about making sure that the content you are creating is suitable for that, and you're not just taking a piece you've used elsewhere and putting it on, and actually there is real value. There is some exchange between the brand and the person.
And you're nodding your head, Nico, to that.
I was just thinking that as we all start having ad blockers on our phones by default, brands will become people, and brands are they're going to become publishers like us, and they're going to need all of the tools and all of the expertise that we've built up over hundreds of years in some case. So when you talk about storytelling, I think actually there's something to it that effectively that is going to become the currency we exchange. You know, we're going to exchange stories.
Oh, this is a great time for me. I've got loads of stories, man. Fantastic. But I still think it's a load of bollocks. We're coming to the end. We've got a couple of minutes, right? So this is the time when I usually say 5 awesome people, great conversation, and I ask them about their advice to the audience for the future. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go the other way and ask you, as each of your publications or your business, what did you do wrong at the FT?
Nothing.
Coming back, what did you do wrong? You must have done something wrong. Well, it's on the record.
I think over time at the FT we might have built up kind of internally. We have quite complex architecture. We're an old company, and over time that just naturally happens. And I talked about kind of the GDPR product we built recently. That was actually remarkably difficult internally to coordinate people, but I think we did a good job of it. But over time, I think if we'd kept an eye on the future, we could have maybe kept some of the legacy out and made us more agile.
Yeah, okay.
I think we just
Very
need
honest.
to do more of that.
Henrik, what did you fuck up?
A lot, unfortunately, that I will not go into yet. What the industry that I'm working in, what the industry fucked up is to take too long to realize that they have a fantastic product and that they are a content factory that is addressing emotions of people, and they don't have to take branded content. They can tell the story as such, and still people are willing either to pay with their eyeballs or to pay with a subscription fee for it. And now, everyone has to run it to find the right niche, and tech company took the head start of it. That was definitely a big mistake.
Okay, so you were slow to react, and now you're reacting.
Yes, absolutely.
Galia, any mistakes?
I used to belong to an industry which committed the massive suicide of the decade by putting all content online for free.
Yeah.
This was the big mistake for print. Fortunately, other contents will not repeat it. And personally, for our company, we lost time.
Yeah, you lost time. Okay, fair enough. Ian and Elizabeth, you're both kind of newcomers, I I suppose.
Absolutely. I think my answer to what have we done wrong is plenty of things, but that's okay because we've built our business on a culture of being able to try things out. And many of these never even see the light of day, but it's that experimentation that allows us to do some really cool things and push the boundaries of storytelling.
But as you do that, you might do the wrong thing.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Okay. Elizabeth?
Like I said earlier, I think that we tried a few years ago to imitate a model that most publishers were doing, which was to bring advertising into a platform, and we did that without really wondering if that matched our ideals and values as a brand. So we tried for a little bit, and then we realized we have to go back and start over and transition. And I think it was definitely hard, but it's possible, and shifting into something that you believe in is probably the accomplishment at the end, is to try to continue on that ideal direction.
Awesome. You've all been extremely honest. So we're going to finish on a good wave. Catch a good wave. Elizabeth, future, one sentence.
Hopefully some more audio, some more localization, and a lot of awesome authors coming up.
Ian?
Good question. New platforms and trying new things, both from Courts and from the industry as a whole, I think.
Awesome. Galia?
I would like to believe that the future is for the content creators and for the quality ones.
Thank you. Henrik? Dr. Henrik?
Exciting local content that addresses local communities and countries, not only globally seen. And I also believe that it will be very convenient for the users. It will be a great experience at the end of the day.
Okay. Finally, Nico?
I think brands will become publishers and start producing content, and I think hopefully we'll start rewarding content creators more equitably.
Start with me, if you don't mind. That would be awesome. I think they've been amazing. They've been honest, they've been transparent, they've been fun, and a round of applause for my panel, please. Thank you.